Hello and welcome to the April edition of the Carlisle Community Forum. My name is Jerry Lerman. It's a wonderfully sunny but brisk spring morning here in Carlisle. Joining me today, we have, going from left to right, Joanne Forsberg representing the Friends of the Carlisle Council on Aging, David Klein, the director of the Carlisle COA, Angela Smith, who is the Outreach and Program Coordinator of the COA, and our special guest, Sherry Keating, who is the founder of Diabetes Care Consulting and is going to be talking with us today about diabetes, prediabetes, and how to deal with those health issues. So to get things started, we'll pass it to David Klein.
Thanks, Jerry. As a lot of people know, we're in a little past midway through April now, and our town meeting is coming up on May 2nd. It's moved around a few times, I believe, but it's the night of May 2nd, which is a Tuesday night, I think.
I believe so.
Yeah. And there's a few things on the town warrant for the town meeting that I think have drawn the attention of the Council on Aging that I thought we should mention. There's an article about accessory apartments that last year when it was discussed in town meeting, the Council on Aging was in favor of, and I think the same holds true for this year because one of the things that we discuss quite often is the lack of affordable housing in the town, and if even a few accessory apartments can be added so that people can have the flexibility of having their son or daughter or renting out an apartment so that it helps them with incomes to stay in their homes, that's great. Or if on the converse, if you've got a younger family and they want to have their parents or their mom or dad or something like that stay with them but not live in the house, it's detached accessory apartments, then that's a good thing. So I think I would mention that. And then perhaps even more germane to our main mission is to improve the services that we offer to seniors and others in the town of Carlisle. Is there's going to be an article, I believe it's Article 16 on the town warrant, that asks for a sum of money to do a feasibility study for a possible community/senior center on the property at 338 Bedford Road, which some people refer to as the Goff property, the original Goff property. And we're hoping that people will consider that article. It's something that we've worked on for a little while, and our goal with that in sponsoring the warrant article question for the feasibility study is to try to find out how much a building would cost, to have somebody find out between the Council on Aging and the Recreation Department and other possible stakeholders in the building, how big the building would have to be to meet our needs, and if there's any impediments that particular property would have, and also to get a cost estimate for the building so that perhaps we could use some fundraising, because we realize that it could be a pricey thing, and we don't want the town to have to pay for everything, but we have to have a starting point. So anyway, if you're coming to town meeting, and we encourage you to, if you could give some consideration to the feasibility study warrant article, that would be great.
Okay, thank you, David. Angela?
Hi, I just want to highlight one of our events coming in really the beginning of June, so we'll give people a lot of notice, and it's our annual Spring Fling, and Right at Home sponsors the music with DJ John Mansfield from Mansfield Entertainment, and we'll have refreshments. And last year, the National Charity League, which is a group of mothers and daughters, helped by being volunteers. And the girls who were teenagers were so enjoyable, and everybody had such a great time with the girls that we've decided to change it this year to make it available to people of all ages. So if you're 10 or older and you'd like to come as a family, or just a couple would like to come, or seniors would like to come, please come. It's a great night of fun and entertainment and great music and some nice refreshments. So this is sort of exciting that it's intergenerational.
And
Do
it's
you-
free, right?
And it's free.
Yeah.
So you don't need tickets or advanced reservations?
We do want people to register, so we do ask them to call the Council on Aging by May 26th. But other than that, just come and enjoy.
And the registration is more so that we know how much food and drinks to
Right.
to get.
Sounds like a party.
Well, we hope you join us.
Okay, thank you, Angela. So next up is Sherry Keating, who will talk to us about all things diabetes. Sherry?
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for having me today. I'm very delighted to be here. Yes, my name is Sherry Keating, and I founded a company to actually make a difference in the prediabetes epidemic that we have in our country. It's called Diabetes Care Consulting, and people need to become aware that there are 86 million people with prediabetes, and 90% are unaware. And so I wanted to make a difference and go out and increase the awareness and offer screenings and also educational classes on how to reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 58 to 71% based on the Diabetes Prevention Program.
So what exactly is prediabetes, and how would I know if I have it?
Good questions. So prediabetes actually is a form of insulin resistance. And what that means is that your body makes insulin, but it's not able to use the insulin that it makes properly. So the sugar doesn't go into the cells. Instead, it goes into the bloodstream, and it actually travels to the small blood vessels in your eyes, your kidneys, and your nerves, and it causes damage to those nerves, and it causes complications of diabetes. And so prediabetes, people that are at risk for prediabetes are those that have pretty much, they're overweight and mostly central adiposity, meaning that it's in the middle. We call it belly fat. I don't like that term, but people understand when you say that term. So belly fat is, and a lack of regular exercise. Other risk factors are if you have a family history of diabetes, so that's your primary relative, so your mother, father, sister, and brother. If you have a history of high blood pressure, or you have high blood pressure but it's being treated, you're still at risk. If you have elevated cholesterol, mainly your good cholesterol is low and you have elevated triglycerides. If you've had gestational diabetes, meaning that in pregnancy you develop diabetes, certain ethnic groups are at higher risk of developing diabetes, and as I said, inactivity. And men seem to have a higher risk of diabetes than women. So if you have any of those risk factors, you really should be screened for prediabetes.
So other than a blood test, is there anything that I personally would notice if I were in a pre-diabetic condition?
In terms of symptoms, no. Not until you developed symptoms of high blood sugar, because prediabetes means that your blood sugar is elevated but not high enough to be diagnosed with diabetes. So what people should do is actually take the screening test, and you can go online to doihaveprediabetes.org, and there is a questionnaire. It's very simple. It asks basic questions. Are you a man or a woman? What age are you? There's a weight chart. You would find your height, look at your weight, and then it would give you a number. Have you had gestational diabetes? Do you have a relative with diabetes? Are you active in terms of exercise? Each answer to that question, there's a point related to it. If you add up your points, if you are 5 or more, you are at high risk for having prediabetes. The next step would be to go to your doctor and have either a fasting blood sugar, and so that would be an 8-hour fast. And if your fasting blood sugar comes back between 100 and 125, that would indicate you have prediabetes. The other test that you could have would be an A1C, which is not a fasting test. It's kind of like a camera snapshot looking back 3 months of how well your blood sugars have been regulated. your red blood cells actually live 3 months. So if you have a lot of sugar floating around in your blood that attaches to the red blood cells, you can measure that, and that's what that A1C test measures. And if your A1C comes back 5.7 to 6.4%, you have prediabetes. And then you need to start making some lifestyle changes to reduce your risk of developing type 2 diabetes.
Okay, so let's say that I'm in the pre-diabetic risk pool. What should I be doing to minimize my likelihood of becoming diabetic?
It's all about healthy eating and exercise, and really everybody should be doing this. It's not just for someone who has prediabetes, it's really just healthy eating and getting exercise. 150 minutes of exercise. So it's 30 minutes 5 times a week. And that means that you don't have to do the 30 minutes all at once. Even if you did 10-minute increments at a moderate pace 3 times a day, you're still going to get the same benefit. So the study, the Diabetes Prevention Program study, proved that people that lost 5 to 7% of their body weight through a low-fat eating plan and exercising 30 minutes 5 times a week could reduce their risk of type 2 diabetes by 58 to 71%. So 7% of your body weight, if you think about it, you're 200 pounds, that's only 14 pounds. So it's not like we're asking you to lose 50 pounds, 100 pounds. That is enough to decrease the fat in the liver, to decrease the insulin resistance, to lower your risk of diabetes. So that belly fat that we were talking about, you really want to work on getting that belly fat to decrease.
So I've never been clear on the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. What are the differences?
1 is a deficiency of insulin. Type 1 is a deficiency of insulin. Your pancreas is no longer making insulin. Type 2 is a resistance problem. So you're making insulin, but you're not using it properly. So there's insulin resistance, type 2, insulin deficiency, type 1. And then there's a third, gestational diabetes, that women develop about week 24 of pregnancy, and it's from the hormone changes that can cause the diabetes in pregnancy.
Is there a difference in the way type 1 and type 2 diabetes are treated?
Yes, type 1 is you have a deficiency of insulin, meaning you're not making it, you need to be on insulin. Type 2, you can lose weight, and sometimes that will reverse the process. Sometimes you need medications, but they always start with lifestyle changes in addition to an oral medication. Metformin is normally one of the top medications that are prescribed for people that can tolerate it. Sometimes it can cause some GI distress. And some people that have some kidney problems may not be a candidate, but usually the American Diabetes Association every year comes out with standards of medical care, and they always have lifestyles first, and then they start with metformin if that's appropriate, and sometimes they go right to insulin, depending on how high your blood sugar is at the time of diagnosis.
So if I think I might be pre-diabetic or I am type 2 diabetic, what kind of diet should I be eating?
Well, it's an all-around healthy diet. So that would be, have you ever heard, Jerry, of My Plate?
No, I have
Okay.
not.
You have a 9-inch plate. This is an
Are
awesome...
you inviting me to dinner at your house?
Absolutely. Come on over. I will get you on the path to preventing diabetes. So My Plate is really a 9-inch plate, and you would actually take that plate and divide it in half. So on one half, you're going to have your fresh fruits and vegetables. On the other half of the plate, in the lower, you're going to divide that half into a quarter. The lower corner, you're going to have a lean protein. So I tell my patients to have less of the 4-legged animal type of meat and go more with the 2-legged animals. So your chicken and your turkey and also fish, but not the skins of the chicken and the turkey, because there's a lot of fat. And then, so you have your lean protein, and then you would have a whole grain in your other quarter of your plate. So forget all the white products and move to the whole grain products. The whole grain have fiber, they have iron, and they have certain B vitamins, and they will actually prevent blood sugars from bouncing all over the place. So you want to have whole grains and then a low-fat dairy. And if you eat My Plate, you're gonna decrease your risk of a lot of chronic diseases.
I've recently discovered farro, which is a wonderful whole grain that is very tasty and delightful. So the idea is to eat non-refined kinds of grains.
Absolutely.
And when you refine the grain, what is it that gets lost?
The fiber. The fiber gets lost. So you're taking the whole grain, and there's enriched and there's refined. Refined is actually taking out the bran, where is all the fiber. And then the enriched is they've taken out the fiber, but they've put back some of the iron and the vitamin B, the B vitamins. So the best thing to do is to look for products that say 100% whole grain. And that's in your cereals, that's in your crackers, that's in your bread, that's in your pasta, that's in your rice, those kind of products. You want to switch to whole grains.
Okay. So what kind of services does your company offer to help people deal with prediabetes and diet issues?
Okay, so my company offers healthy living education classes. So I have 8 classes that I offer, and one of them is prediabetes, and then I offer actually type 2 diabetes classes. Learning about type 2 diabetes, it's a very complicated disease, so I try to simplify it and teach people the behaviors that they can do every day to decrease the risk of developing complications. You see, diabetes is the leading cause of adult onset blindness, lower limb amputation, and kidney disease. And when you have chronic elevated blood sugars because you're not managing your diabetes, you're at risk for those, as well as heart disease and strokes and vascular problems. And so I teach how to simplify type 2 diabetes, also about those complications and what the screening tests people need to have every year so that they're being monitored and what they can do every day at home to decrease their risk of developing those complications. Every 5 minutes, somebody dies of a diabetes-related complication. It's a serious, life-threatening disease, and people need to be controlling their diabetes. It's very, very important for their future health. I also teach healthy eating classes. I teach people how my plate. I teach them about the food groups and portion control. I teach them about how to read a label. We literally spend an hour dissecting a food label because on the front it may look like a healthy product, but if you actually learn to read the label and the ingredients, it may not be such a healthy product. I also teach classes on toxic chemicals. I'm a Pure Haven Essentials independent consultant, and I started getting into the world of toxic chemicals because I'm a cancer survivor. I had a very rare cancer. I had fingernail melanoma, and I had an amputation, and I'm at high risk for having the sun type of melanoma. Fingernail melanoma isn't actually related to the sun. And so I didn't realize that the products that I was using were actually putting me at risk for developing cancer. And so my daughter actually went to a Pure Haven Essentials party, and she came home with this brochure. And the brochure showed you the chemicals and what type of chronic diseases that they cause. So when I started looking at the product that I was using for my sunscreen, that the dermatology recommended, so the front of the package, it's like don't judge a book by a cover, don't judge a product by the front. Because what happens is when I was using that sunscreen that I was being recommended to use, it says 100% dermatology recommended. When I learned about the chemicals, there were 4 chemicals in that product that were causing cancer, potentially. And I was using that every day because I was trying to prevent cancer. So now I want to increase awareness of the use of toxic chemicals and the laws that regulate the products and the chemical use in products. So I add that as one of my classes as well. I also am a CPR instructor, so I also teach CPR. And I offer classes on to assisted livings and long-term care facilities, nursing homes, and what I want to do is teach people about aging and diabetes and how to help the aging population to manage their diabetes because their symptoms are very different.
Are older people more at risk for diabetes than younger people?
Yes. If you take that questionnaire and you're over 60, you're going to automatically get 3 points.
Oh,
So
boy.
out of the 5 points to increase, those 5 points to indicate you're at high risk for diabetes, if you're over 60, you're going to get 3. And if you're a man, you're going to get 4. So Jerry, you already have 4 towards your 5. Just to, yes. Because as you age, you're less sedentary, you're more sedentary a lot of times. Not everybody, but sometimes you are. And that's not because maybe they want to be, but because of physical and functional disabilities that they may have. And just because our body wears and, it's not working as effectively. So the insulin that we're producing, it's not working as effectively. And so people are at a higher risk as they age. So
I'm a chronic reader of labels on food, and a piece of advice that somebody once gave me is to watch out for ingredients that have more than 3 syllables. Are there particular things in food ingredients that people should be on the lookout for?
Absolutely. The empty calories, as we call them. So empty calories are things that are sugar, sodium, cholesterol. Those are kinds of things that you want to look for. Is you want to try to stay away. If those are listed, if sugar's the first, anytime you look at an ingredients label, what the product has most is the first ingredient. So if you pick up something and it says sugar as the first ingredient, you probably shouldn't pick that. You shouldn't be eating that probably. Or if you are going to eat it, you probably want to just have a small portion. So the first 3 parts of a label are very indicative of really what that product is made out of. You want products that have high fiber. You want products that have no trans fats. You want products that are low in saturated fats. And you want products that, have whole grains. So those are some of the things that you want to look for on a label.
Okay, so tell me a little more about insulin resistance. My understanding from our discussion before is that that's when you're still making insulin, but your body isn't able to process it properly. Is that
Exactly.
correct?
Yes, that's correct. And so it's a long process. We have an amazing body, and our body can compensate for a long time, sometimes 10, 20 years. It can compensate. So you're making your insulin, and say you eat a meal, you digest your meal, and you create sugar from the food that you ate, the carbohydrates that you've eaten. So what happens is during that digestive process, there's hormones in the gut that signal to the pancreas to make insulin to bring that sugar into the cell where it needs to go. So you make that insulin, and when you get to the cellular level and you need to get the insulin, it's kind of like I tell my patients, it's kind of like you go and you unlock your door. You have a key. The insulin is the key to open the door to the cell. So you go to your house, you put the key in, but you can't turn it to go into the door. Well, that's kind of insulin resistance. You put the sort of the insulin, which is the key, into the cell, but when you go to turn it so the sugar goes in, it doesn't work effectively because of the insulin resistance. So what you end up doing is the sugar doesn't go where it's supposed to go, and it goes through your bloodstream, and it goes to those areas that cause permanent damage. But our pancreas is amazing because it will just keep pumping out more insulin to try to get that sugar in the cell, and eventually it will burn out those insulin-making cells called the beta cells. And so when it can't compensate anymore, that's when people have chronic elevated blood sugars, and then they develop symptoms, and then they get diagnosed with diabetes. The problem is that a lot of times you've already developed complications, because remember, this is years in the making. And so a lot of times you've already developed chronic complications. So I have a lot of people that come in to see me. I work at Health Alliance Hospital as a per diem certified diabetes educator, and I have patients that I see one-on-one, and when they come in, I always say, how was your diabetes diagnosed? And they said, well, I had a heart attack. Or I went to the eye doctor and they noticed bleeding in the back of my retina. Or I had an infection that wouldn't heal. I lost a lot of weight. So a lot of times they've already developed complications. They may have neuropathy. Oh, I had tingling and numbness in my legs. I went to the doctor, and then they did a blood test, and I had diabetes. So the key is to prevent that and to preserve your beta cells, which produce insulin, so that you don't end up with type 2 diabetes. And by taking that screening test on doihavprediabetes.org, and then going to the doctor and having the blood test to confirm whether you have prediabetes, and then making those lifestyle changes, you can really significantly reduce your risk.
So, but again, there aren't any warning signs other than something sort of catastrophic that would tell me that I'm in trouble. So over this 20-year period, bad things are happening inside my body, but I don't know about it.
Until you actually get elevated blood sugar and you get symptoms. And symptoms of high blood sugar are you're thirsty, you're hungry, you have to urinate frequently, you lose weight unexplained. Weight loss, it's not like you're trying. You may have fatigue, you may have an infection that doesn't heal. Those are the classic signs of elevated blood sugar. If you have those signs, you need to go see a doctor and have your blood tested. A lot of people that have prediabetes, the other thing about prediabetes is in the study, the diabetes prevention program, it showed actually that there were people under 60, if you are overweight and you have a history of gestational diabetes, that's the diabetes in pregnancy, and you are under 60, the drug metformin that they start diabetics on when they're diagnosed, that drug can be effective along with lifestyle changes and also reducing your further risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So that's why it's so important to be tested.
Is there such a thing as pre-diabetes? Because like personally, I've been checked and my
David,
blood
I
sugar.
think that's all of your life leading up to.
Yeah, exactly. But if you are not within the pre-diabetes range, but you're approaching the pre-diabetes range, is that a signal that you've got to be careful?
Well, I think I've never heard of pre-diabetes.
Well, I was being facetious about that, but what I'm saying
yes.
is if you're approaching that
Absolutely,
range, yeah.
you need to start making changes, absolutely, because you are going to tip the scales at some point.
Literally, if not physically.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So what I mean is you are going to go into prediabetes and then it will progress to type 2 diabetes.
All right.
So the key is that belly fat and the exercise and eating, using my plate. Low fat, watching your trans fats, no trans fats, low saturated fats, fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, low fat dairy, and lean protein. That's really.
And did you say earlier when you and Jerry were first talking about this that one of the profiles is a normal cholesterol but high triglycerides?
It would be a low good cholesterol, which is called your HDL.
Mm-hmm.
So, and your HDL is the type of cholesterol that you will actually go to the arteries to remove the bad cholesterol, which is your LDL. And if you have a low good cholesterol and you have a high triglycerides, then those are signs and symptoms of prediabetes, yes.
Okay.
And if you have high blood pressure, over 140 over 90, or you're being treated for high blood pressure, that's also a risk as well. So, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, any other questions from the panel?
If somebody is interested in getting your services, do you meet with people over a period of time? What's a typical client?
I also offer one-on-one self-pay because I'm not a nurse practitioner. I'm a registered nurse. I have a bachelor's degree. I've been taking care of diabetics and cardiac patients for 34 years through my nursing career, in the ICU, outpatient, telephonically. But I can't bill because I'm not a nurse practitioner. So I have clients that do self-pay, and they can contact me on my website or my email. And I will work with them, and I will sit down with them. We'll go through their whole medical history. We'll come up with goals that meet their needs. And we'll work however long they need to and however often. I let the client drive that. And I also offer the education classes to corporations, to staff, to employee wellness programs. I actually work with a company in Worcester that I offer education classes for their staff. Wellness program. I teach at Council on Aging. So I teach in the adult education programs at the vocational schools. I offer presentations to Rotaries, to chambers. I'm also offering CEU programs for nurses and social workers. And so, absolutely, I'm excited to spread this news because we have an epidemic. It's really a pandemic. And we really need to get people to be talking about this. And the Department of Public Health is really working hard to get the word out, but we need to do more. And so I'm hoping to make a difference. And so, yes, please call me and go online to doihaveprediabetes.org. Take that screening test and be proactive.
So, I mean, we hear in the news often about the obesity epidemic, but
Yes.
it sounds like there is a direct connection between obesity and the various range of diabetic.
Can I tell you, it's very sad. There are 208,000 people in the United States under 20 that have type 1 or 2 diabetes, and there are 5,000 more per year developing type 2 diabetes. Now, type 2 diabetes used to be more of a disease of the older generation, or, mid to older generations, but now what we're finding is that because our kids are more sedentary than they used to be, and I see it in my own grandkids, when they come over, they're like, Grammy, can we go on the computer? Can, we play on the tablet? I'm like, no, we're gonna go outside. We're gonna get some exercise. So I think because kids, we're very digital. We're in an age of digital, we're in a digital era, and I think that that's really gonna impact this diabetes epidemic. And people are developing it younger, they're more sedentary, and we need to really start the education in the schools. And that's where I really want to get to, is get into the schools to start teaching kids at that age. And my grandkids, I bought them a plate. Now, you can go on to choosemyplate.gov, and you can buy one of those My Plates that I was talking about, so that you can start learning portion control. There's many different resources out there, and choosemyplate.gov is an excellent resource. And they have a program called My Plate, My Wins that will go in and come up with a meal plan for you, and you can track your exercise, and there's Fitbits, and there's all sorts of apps on your phone. So there's a lot of resources out there to help people to lose weight and to eat healthy. You just need to go to those places and use that information. And it will make a huge difference in the future health, and your kids, families, yeah.
When you do your CPR instruction, does that include how to use the AED devices?
Yes, it does.
Okay. We're interested in that.
Okay, great. I mean, chronic disease, everything goes back to diet and exercise. It's amazing. So if you could, and everyone should be eating that way. It's really not specific for people with prediabetes. It's really healthy for all of us to move our bodies and to eat in the right portion sizes and to eat the right foods.
So I often hear people doing a little calculation, like, if I exercise, then I can have the dish of ice cream. Is that a good way of looking at things?
Well, it could be, but you really want to, you do need to treat yourself and reward yourself for doing those healthy things. But instead of having a bowl of ice cream, maybe you want to start thinking about having a bowl of low-fat frozen yogurt. So any way that, like if you're drinking whole milk, the first step would be to go to 2%. So it's small changes that really lead to a big impact later on. So yes, I mean, you need to reward yourself because it's hard work. And I kind of tell people 80-20. So 80% of the time you're really on track. And say it's Christmas and you want to have that piece of pecan pie, then have that piece of pecan pie. But remember, don't have such a big piece. Just have a smaller piece. Every little bit is going to make a big difference. I have people that I work with saying, I will never change my diet. I've grown up this way. This is the way I want to eat. So I say, okay, I'm not going to have you change any of the food, but how about if we just have a little less, like maybe a third less on your plate than you normally do, and you know what? It works. They start losing weight, and then they're like, wow. And so it's just little things, little steps like that. It's not drastic. It's starting baby steps.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, baby steps. They will add up, absolutely.
Good. I wouldn't want to give up my pecan pie.
Neither would I, and I still have my pecan pie. I just have a smaller piece, and I think about what I'm eating, in addition to that, so it all balances out.
Okay. Any other questions from the panel? Thank you very much, Sherry.
You're very welcome.
Let's see. Next, let's go to Joanne to hear from the Friends of the Council on Aging.
Thank you, Jerry. The Friends of the Council on Aging are currently working on their annual meeting plans, which will be held on Sunday, May 21st at Benfield Farms on the first floor from 3 to 5 p.m. And our speaker for this program this year is Tim Holt. Now, Tim is no stranger to Carlisle. He has lived here for many years, and he's been very active in the community as a school committee member and then later as a selectman. He was also active in the First Religious Society and received the Honored Citizen Award in 2010. And he has even served here as moderator for the CCTV programs. Although he now lives in Concord, Tim somehow can't seem to get Carlisle out of his system. He's also continuing to work for the Mosquito as a sports writer, a feature writer, and a forum writer. And in February, he wrote a forum article entitled Carlisle, Back to the Future. This will serve as the topic of his annual meeting talk. He has seen Carlisle change over the years, and he will try to stimulate our thinking about Carlisle and Carlisle's past and how it relates to what Carlisle's future might be, what areas we should be concerned about, and where we are going. Along with his talk, the Second Wind, Roger Winsby, John Safier, Ray Taylor, and Carrie Kissinger will provide some musical entertainment, and there will be refreshments. For anyone not familiar with the Friends of the COA, we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization that's dedicated to supporting the COA through grants and providing cultural and educational programs to the seniors in town. We support the COA by giving money to support fuel and food assistance programs, medical supplies, podiatry clinic offsets, and any other area where there are needs which come up which are not covered by the COA town budget. Along with the Friends of the Gleason Library, we sponsored programs last fall on the Muslims from Jason Janetti and Russian music with Richard Travers. This spring, we had an Art Matters program with Jane Blair and are just finished up a health clinic on back pain and another one on emergency room procedures. In order to do these things, we rely on charitable donations that are tax-deductible from our friends and neighbors. Although we have a special fund drive in December, you can donate at any time of the year to the Friends. The mailing address for donations is Friends of the COA, Box 38, Carlisle, Mass. We hope you will all come to our programs and support us, and subsequently the COA by our help to them with your donations.
Thank you, Joanne. I look forward to the COA meeting coming up. Let's see, we have about 20 minutes left, so.
Good, we're going to make good use of that time. One of the things that we do at the Council on Aging is beyond our regular lunch programs that Angela's going to be talking about. We have a couple destination lunches, we'll call them, and sometimes we refer to them as Joanne's Restaurant Reviews, because usually our host for these programs is Joanne Willens. So Joanne has two such restaurant reviews coming up. One is on Wednesday, May 17th, and it's to Nancy's Airfield Cafe, which I've never been to, but I understand is actually very popular. That's in Stowe, and the food apparently is very good, and you get to watch the planes go in and out. So that is Nancy's Airfield Cafe, Wednesday, May 17th. And if you're interested, please register by calling Joanne at 978-371-8023. That's 978-371-8023. And Joanne has a second trip planned for early June, so I'll mention it here because sometimes our newsletter is just on the cusp of the beginning of the month. And that's also a return trip to a popular restaurant that she has done before called Zaftig's in Natick. And that is on a Monday, June 5th. And also, please call Joanne if you're interested in attending. Also in June, we have a trip to Stoneham Theater to see a show called I Loved, I Lost, I Made Spaghetti. And that is led by our intrepid theater coordinator, Lillian de Benedictis. That also includes lunch at Felicia's Restaurant, which I gather is near Stoneham Theater. And cost for that is $37. But
Does that include lunch?
it does not include lunch. So you can get whatever you wish or not wish to at Felicia's. If you wish to eat light and have a proper plate,
Bring
Then-
your high plate.
then that works. But if you're interested, this is very popular, these shows. It tends to be a very similar group of people that goes, but it doesn't mean that if you've never gone that you can't try it. It's always good to try new things. So call Lillian at 978-369-1848. That's 978-369-1848. And some of you may know Lillian and Joanne have both been former board members of the Council on Aging. So we trust them highly. Joanne has a trip coming up also that's not necessarily just food-oriented or theater-oriented. It's just a day trip, but I say just. It's a day trip to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and it is on Wednesday, May 24th. There's another one coming up in June, a day trip to Newburyport on Tuesday, June 13th. I wanted to put this out there for both of them because these are the warm weather months. These tend to be when we have these trips, this time of the year, and again in the fall when the weather is the best, although there's lots of good local opportunities during the summer as well. Are we doing the trip to the JFK Museum sometime this summer?
We're working on a date with Frank Rigg now.
Okay, excellent. Yes, Carlisle is blessed, as some may know, to have Frank Rigg as a resident, and Frank was a former curator at the John F. Kennedy Museum. So his tours, both Angela and I have participated, almost everybody in our office has participated. His tours are very enlightening, and if he wasn't there, I'm sure visiting the JFK Museum would be enlightening anyway, but getting that extra nugget of information is really wonderful. I don't want to hog the stage
Okay.
here, Ann, so.
Oh, but I have
Oh.
a sort of follow-on question from Sherry
Yeah.
based on something you just said. So if I'm going out to eat in a restaurant, as I love to do, what things should I be doing to try to maintain a healthy diet when I don't have control over the ingredients in the food?
That's a great question. I actually tell my patients to preview the menu of the restaurant you're going to go to first to make sure that there is food there that is healthy. I don't think I've ordered exactly from the menu for years. I always I ask for things that you can do to make things healthier. Ask for dressings on the side. Try to avoid fried food. Try to go with your two-legged animal dishes or fish. Make sure, a lot of times I tell people don't fill up on the bread. Maybe don't even have the bread on the table if that's something that you're going to eat a lot of before your meal. And asked instead of fries to have another vegetable. They will cater to you. I do it all the time. So it's just making those small adjustments. Share a dessert. If you're going to have a dessert, share it with somebody. Yeah. Those are just simple little things that you can do when you go out to eat to try to make it a little bit healthier.
Thanks. Good tips.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a number of programs coming up, and the first is our community book club, which is going to be meeting on May 8th, and they're going to be talking about being mortal. And if people are aging and haven't read it, it's a really wonderful book on what you want to know about treating diseases and issues that come up, and what you hope your doctors know. And so I think if you haven't already been to a book discussion on this or read the book, it's really well worth doing. We started a new program last month called the Carlisle Social Hour at Benfield. The next one's going to be May 8th, and this was intended for people who were maybe living alone and would like to meet some new people to come and just chat and maybe find a new friend. And so that went over very well, and we had a very good group. And so we're going to do it again and hopefully do it every month except June and July. And it's just a matter of getting together and meeting people. And Linda Butterworth Till has made a very generous offer, and I want to make sure that people take advantage of this. So if you do not have a healthcare proxy or a living will, and you're a Carlisle resident, then she's going to do the first 10 Carlisle residents free. And so that's a very big savings. And if yours is very, very old, you might want to consider updating it. And so please give us a call and get on the list, because we'd like to see at least 10 people take advantage of that.
Now, she's done this in the past, right?
She offers something free every May, and she offers different things for us. So this is very generous for her.
She's taking advantage of the fact that May is National Elder Law Month.
It's a very kind offer.
A very kind offer.
And then we're doing a second on spirituality and aging as a community conversation. Anne-Marie Rouse, who's a geriatric care manager and a chaplain, held the first one earlier this year. And it's just a discussion of how spirituality, whether you believe in God or not, affects our life and how we can benefit from it. And it may just be your feeling of the environment. So that worked out really well the first time. We had a good turnout, so we hope people come to that. That's on May 9th at 1:30. At May 16th, we're going to take a trip over to Clark Farm and see all their organic produce and the animals that they have there, and learn about the farm from Andrew. And you can also become a CSA member if you're not. On May 23rd, we're going to reach out to the younger people that either aren't quite seniors or are becoming seniors and answer questions about Social Security and how it fits into retirement planning. And one of our own residents is going to talk to us, Larry Machini. And then we've got to eat, and we'll try to eat well, but we are going to have a coffee, which is going to be hosted by Elizabeth Aquaviva and her friends on May 3rd, and a men's breakfast on May 11th. And on May 4th, we're going to have Chelmsford Crossing, and we're going to have Tommy Rule, who is a very good singer-entertainer who we've had back a few years ago, and that's going to be sponsored by the Cultural Council. They provided the funding for Tommy. And so then we're also going to do the COA lunch, which is going to be on May 18th. And for that, we are going to follow the program with the middle school advanced choir. And so they always do a really good job, and they're always entertaining. And we're going to Neshoba Tech for the last time this year, this school year, for a lunch on May 10th. So,
Speaking of choral groups, we have a choral performance of the Carlisle Community Chorus, and that is Tuesday, May 9th. It had been scheduled for the 16th, but originally the town meeting was going to be on the 16th, so they moved to the 9th. And that is a Tuesday evening at 7:30 at the Carlisle Public Schools in the Quarry Auditorium. It's usually about a 35, 40-minute concert, and they do an excellent job. It's an intergenerational group for those that may not have heard them sing before, and anyone from age 10 or 12 up. So we have sometimes 3 generations of performers in the group. Please come out and support their concert. It's free. I think they usually ask for a donation.
to a food pantry.
Or a food pantry, Merrimack Valley Food Bank, of either perishable food or personal hygiene items. And also, if you like their performance, consider joining. They're always looking for new members, particularly members of different age groups and men. It's probably about 3/4 women, so having an extra male voice or two can't hurt, although they may eat more.
Will that lower my pre-diabetic risk?
It will make you feel good. It will exercise your voice so that you'll be able to be a better host going forward of the cable television show. Sorry to interrupt, Ange, but
That's
you
fine.
opened the door with the
I
chorus.
I know. No, that was great. Do you want to talk about the chamber orchestra as well?
Sure. So the Carlisle Chamber Orchestra, boy, we have a lot of music talent here in Carlisle, and it's not surprising if anybody's ever heard the chorus groups and the band from the schools. Even the young kids are really so good. So there's a concert of the Carlisle Chamber Orchestra featuring Lucia Lynn, who's a violinist for the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and that's going to be on Friday, May 12th at 8 p.m. at the Carlisle Congregational Church. And I think I should mention, because I was listening to Angela spout all these dates and myself spout all these dates, and and it's like the information that you were giving, Sherry, this information is all available in other places. Sherry's website is going to be given on the presentation of the cable TV show, but our newsletter, actually, we mail it out to seniors in the community. If you're not on our mailing list, please let us know. We'd be happy to add you. But also, there's the online version of it, which is posted to the town website. So if you go to the carlislema.gov website and you click on senior services, and there's a list of all the current and prior newsletters. So we're talking about the May newsletter, and even though we haven't physically received the May newsletter, it's actually out there on the website. And feel free. We even have some interesting comics in there if you want to be amused. And sometimes we ask trivia questions. So we try to have everything that we can possibly fit into 12 pages in that newsletter.
Right. And we also try to send out a weekly email called Bits and Bytes that Maxine Crothers does for us, one of our volunteers and board member, that lists what's coming in the next week as a reminder. So if you're not on that, you can also call the COA at 978-371-2895, and we'll put you on distribution. And twice a month, we do something called News You Can Use.
You can lose it or use it.
And that's hopefully information that will be important to you and interesting, and sometimes there's the current scam to avoid.
But we're also doing exercise classes. And so Angela and I are going to kind of split this spot because we have our blood pressure clinics at some of our events. Our exercise classes are Monday through Friday at all different locations in town, which is one of the reasons that we're interested actually in a community center. But Mondays in May at FRS, at First Religious Societies, they will be intergenerational tap. We call it intergenerational for those who can get out of all ages and participate. That intergenerational tap class is taught by Katrina Rotundi, who teaches a good number of our classes. On Tuesdays, there are two classes, both at St. Irene's, and both taught, one is taught by Katrina. It's Zumba Gold, and that's a morning class, 10:45 a.m., and there's a Tai Chi class taught by Linda Sango, who's been teaching Tai Chi for a few years for us, and that's at 12:30. On Wednesdays, we have a yoga class. That's a yoga class where the registration is through the recreation department. We try to work with the recreation department on a couple different classes each session, and we actually subsidize a couple of the classes through money that's donated to us from the grant from the Friends of the Carlisle Council on Aging. So, those classes may only be a $10 subsidy or a $15 subsidy, but at least, it's a little bit less money, and you can participate. So please call the Council on Aging to register for any of these classes you might be interested in. Our main number is 978 371 2895. Thank you. I know the number, but I was looking at the Recreation Department number for the yoga, 978-369-9815. But our main number is the 978-371-2895. On Thursdays, we have a fitness and cardio class that are both taught by Katrina. The fitness class is right here where we're holding this session of the cable TV show in the Clark Room at Town Hall, and that's at 9:45 a.m. And then at 10:45 a.m. there's a cardio boost class at the Congregational Church. So the key, if you want to do both classes, is that you got to kind of do the class here and then get in your car or run over to Congregational Church to do the cardio class. And then on Friday mornings here in Town Hall, we have a class that we call SAMA. It's an acronym for Senior Approach to Maintaining Agility. It's a very popular class. We have a great sensei teacher, Sarah Hanley, who's a second-generation teacher of the class. And we have firsthand experience with our staff that takes it. So if you want a testimonial, feel free to ask Angela. And then, although we don't sponsor it directly, we highly encourage people to do the walking program, which right now is still an indoor program, but it will be transitioning to outdoor soon. But that's
Well, we're doing the outside too already.
and we're doing the outside too. Oh, I see. We've already started up. Okay, I stand corrected. For inclement weather days, or if you just want to exercise earlier in the morning, the walking at the Carlisle School gym is available Monday through Friday, 6:45 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. If you're interested in it, though, you must call David Flannery, who's the facility manager over at the schools, in addition to being Carlisle's fire chief. And David's number is 978-371-2279 after 4 p.m. or before 5 a.m. the day you want to walk. So David's in charge of coordinating that. And the Carlisle Walking Group, which is starting coming up on Thursdays at 9:30 a.m., starts at Center Park. And it's possible if you do that you can earn the Carlisle Trekker Award.
We've had a number of people do that already.
I don't think that I even knew about the Carlisle Trekker Award. I am too much in my own world, I guess. But there is information about the Carlisle Trails Committee Trail Guide at Fern's and at the town clerk's office. And if you're interested in doing the Carlisle Walking Group, please contact Jane Anderson or Helen Young. And I won't repeat their phone numbers because we've already done too many phone numbers today. Angela, do you want to talk about the podiatry clinic and our blood pressures?
Well, I want to see if we have any time left.
We do.
Okay, then I'll quickly go through. We do blood pressure at most of our main food events, which means at the COA coffee, the Chelmsford Crossing lunch, the men's breakfast, the COA lunch, and it's the second senior moments in the month. We will have somebody there to take your blood pressure. Podiatry clinic is every other month, and for May, it is on May 1st and 2nd. If you're interested, give us a call for an appointment. We also do haircuts to go, and so if you'd like your haircut, you can come and have it done here for a discount right in this room. And just quickly, we do have 2 knitting groups. One is a drop-in knitting group where you can knit whatever you'd like and get instructions from people. The other is Knitting in Service, which is a group of women, although men could come, and we generally go to somebody's house once a month, and we knit hats and scarves for the homeless in Boston.
Okay, thank you.
That's amazing.
Well, I guess it's time to wrap things up. I'd like to thank our special guest, Sherry Keating of Diabetes Care Consulting, for a fascinating conversation on diabetes.
Thank you very much for having
Our
me.
next program will tape on May 17th, and our guest will be Ann Rosis of Life Care of Acton, who is going to talk about how rehabilitation benefits people after a hospitalization. I'd like to remind people that town meeting is on May 2nd. I urge everybody to attend. Thank you for visiting with us today.
Thanks, Jerry. Good job.